Hello everybody, this is Sam over at the Foot Whisperer Reflexology Institute here today with another foot reading video for you. I appreciate everybody following us, especially all my followers who are reaching out from across the pond over in the UK. I listen, read to, and respond to all of your emails and comments, so please continue to interact and let me know that you're liking the stuff that I'm putting out. But this foot reading video came to us from somebody who submitted pictures of their feet. They were so good that we're just using the 3 pictures that they sent in one complete video with 3 markers on each foot. So I will feature you if you send your foot pictures to sam@footwhisperer.com. That is my personal email that I check every single day. So let me know if you'd like to be a part of the foot reading video series. I do read all the emails, I promise. And just a reminder before we get started, we are always going to avoid DPT or diagnosing, prescribing, or treating. That is not what reflexology is about. Instead, we are going to ACE or assess, coach, and educate, which is the intention of foot reading in general. So definitely connect with us, subscribe to the channel for more videos, send me an email, and also find us on Facebook and Instagram. But without further ado, here is our foot reading video. Alrighty, everyone. So let's look at the first picture of Katie's feet that she sent in. Here we have the right foot. So we are effectively referring to both the right side of the body and mentally and emotionally the past context that has happened stress-wise for Katie. Here we have 3 markers that we've seen before in other videos, so just to re-emphasize things that we've already covered, starting at the top of the big toe, we're going to see something a little bit different on the left foot, so notice the size and kind of texture of the callousing here. Callousing, any way, shape, or form, represents a hardening and rigidity present in the reflex tissues. Here, they're at the base of the big toe. It's a pretty common area to see this callousing, but it does represent stiffness in the neck. More specifically for Katie, it would be extending into the jaw area as well as the lower sinuses and teeth. So all of that rigidity, hardness, that tougher tissue has made its way into that headspace, specifically in those reflex areas on the big toe. Okay, moving into the second marker, we can see along the medial arch. The medial arch represents the spine. So if the head and neck is in the big toe, then we would move into the thoracic and horizontal zone 2 in line with the ball of the foot. Then 3 and 4, which is where the circle is, in the sole of the foot, or the arch that's actually lifted. If you were to theoretically put your foot down and you had a nice shape, this would be the arch that would be lifted from the ground. And we can see here specifically superficial vesseling. And that is a water marker indicating that there is fluid along the spine that needs to be constantly moved. The vessels and veins are very superficial, meaning that exercise, specifically cardiovascular exercise, would be a must for Katie to make sure that her nervous system is functioning properly and that her fluid systems aren't impinging any of that flow. Could be from these 2 markers that we've talked about so far that the rigidity that's present at the base of the skull and into the bottom half of the head and neck is because the fluid isn't circulating along the spinal reflexes as well. So that's an interesting theory. But then we also have supporting evidence to that because we move down to our third marker and we see a lot of the dryness and hardness in what would be the sciatic reflexes as well in that heel. So a lot of that roughness, that dryness, that callous nature is also penetrating into the lower body. So it seems like the rigidity below and the rigidity above is kind of trapping the fluid along the spinal reflexes. Overall, cardiovascular activity is a must for Katie that we can see through these feet. We can also see she has a very airy foot, very kind of long and thin, very princess-like. If you've read any of Jane Sheehan's work, the princess foot is definitely what we're seeing here. Indicates a frailer constitution that constantly needs to be bolstered with muscular strength in order to really keep its alignment. Okay? So that's a good first look at the right foot for Katie. Now, let's take a look at the opposite foot. Here we see some crazy stuff. So, top, you can really see that callus, how different it is from a physical standpoint. We see so much more roughness, so much more dryness and packing on of that tissue, indicating that the neck issues have recently gotten worse and are worse on the left side. So more of that kind of jaw, neck, dental area, lower sinus, that would be much, much, much more present on the left side. Kind of flipping contrast, not a marker that I've circled, but if you look at the heel, there's not as much rigidity in the heel on this side. Still present, but it seems like the rigidity has definitely shifted to the upper body. Mentally and emotionally, this would represent her thoughts and opinions becoming more rigid as well. A lot more thoughts are piling on, and they're not really therapeutic in nature. They're starting to get a little bit more sharp, a little bit more hard, and something needs to be kind of thought-wise circulated and softened from an opinion standpoint for Katie. Okay, moving to our second marker, we can see little tiny, tiny, tiny start of a bunion. This is baby, baby, baby bunion. You can see the bone is just starting to protrude a little bit. This is a marker for nerve impingement in the thoracic area though, so impingement of the shoulders would be a common symptom for Katie. This represents that thoracic spine right in between the shoulder blades would really have a little bit more bone deviation than I would personally like to see. So just a really neat kind of marker to identify for that, because that little almost like a little pebble of bone is stuck out. Not necessarily the whole bunion area, which might indicate pressure in the chest. Here we have just a sliver of pressure that would be a more acute sensitivity. Okay, but really what I wanted to talk about is this third marker. So this is a birthmark, and birthmarks come in all shapes and sizes, and we're just going to be talking about Katie's individually. It's a little bit smaller, but it is definitely present. Whenever we see a birthmark like this over a reflex area, it's an automatic indicator for burnout and weakness. And this is a really easy marker to identify, but very, very powerful to understand. Here, it's right in the center of Katie's stomach reflex. On the left foot, this would indicate food sensitivities, as well as propensity for things like acid reflux, GERD, and just kind of irritable stomach tissue in general. When I see a mark like this is kind of like what I'll refer to as X marks the spot, like when shit hits the fan, this is where it's going to go for Katie. For her, it's going to be the stomach reflex. All of her issues will also have a slight digestive component as well. When we talked about constitution, her airy constitution, that kind of longer, narrow constitution, tends to be a little bit more food sensitive anyways, but for Katie, it's definitely prominent, more so than other people. Okay, so those are three really good markers. We've got one more picture to kind of analyze, and here we see the dorsal aspect of Katie's feet. A couple markers we've already seen, but just great to recap and also to tie in everything that we've seen so far already. We have the mark of the overthinker that's present in Katie's toes, and what that is, for those of you who haven't seen the previous videos, is when the big toe separates from the second toe, there is a distance between the big toe representing thoughts and opinions and the second toe representing the influence of feelings and emotions, and kind of separating the head from the heart and kind of creating this internal mental world inside the mind that's separate from the heart space or the feelings that one has. So she's definitely all in her head all of the time, probably because she is so sensitive. And that brings us kind of a marker below. We have that bunion marker, which we'll come back to, but that third marker on both feet, the dorsal aspect, you can see that superficial veining, just like with the spine, indicates a little bit of fluid retention. The lymphatic system needs to be moved. But from a sensitivity standpoint, whenever you see superficial vessels like this, it indicates that somebody literally has very, very thin skin, and energetically they also have very thin skin. They tend to be very sensitive. They don't have strong boundaries. They tend to be very influenced by the people around them, the kind of emotions swirling in the room, the thoughts that are flying around, kind of in the astral planes, if you will. They just have that really thin sense of self and that thin barrier from the outside world. So that mark of the overthinker and the sensitivity level that we're seeing with the superficial vesseling really plays in to a lot of that kind of talk of upset stomach that she's really taking in, and the need to kind of lock down or harden that mental space and lower body to kind of make up for that loosey-goosey constitution. And then the final marker, kind of bringing it back up on the left side with that dorsal bunion, we can see even on this angle that it's slightly red and inflamed. Anytime you see redness in the feet, it's a fire symptom. It indicates inflammation in the tissues, which is not fun to see. You can also see, if you kind of flip-flop back and forth, that the left foot is also much, much, much more red in color than the right, especially in that ball of the foot indicated more recently heated emotions. But here we see that left side thoracic area, that slight bunion area, that impingement of that left shoulder complex in the thoracic spine. It also has some heat on it. So definitely prone to shoulder flare-ups, that upper back knot that just won't go away. Calming that down would probably be physically a really high priority. But we can see from the other markers that Katie has a cardiovascular slowness that also needs to be taken care of. I think that if Katie were to actually implement a more active cardiovascular regimen, like a daily walking routine, I think a lot of her symptoms would mysteriously disappear because she would be getting rid of that stiffness and allowing those sensitive fluids to flow. It would also emotionally and mentally help her decompress from the day's activities, because it seems like she's holding on to those rather than letting those go, and mastering that sensitivity that she's naturally born with is going to be an ongoing theme throughout her life. So really making sure to pay attention to the basics and fundamentals of self-care, which the airy constitutions tend to fly by the seat of their pants. They tend to not do the self-care thing on a regular basis. Regular, structured, scheduled events are not prone to the airy constitution's lifestyle, but Katie needs to master them in order to really get the foundations and the fundamentals under her wings, so to say. So those were 3 pictures of the same person. You can see how a foot reading consultation would be very, very valuable when we look at receiving body work or any kind of treatment or care from a medical perspective. We can really know a lot about a person just by analyzing the various markers that we find on the feet, and they truly are a window into the person, mind, body, and spirit. So if you like the video, definitely subscribe. Let me know what you thought. Send your foot pictures to sam@footwhisperer.com if you'd like to be featured in any of the videos, and you can reach out on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. I will see y'all later and talk to you soon.